This anime was banned in multiple countries for being too explicit just 3 days after its release. However, it received high praise from Hayao Miyazaki. With a complex and rich setting, the characters are innovative and vivid. It earned a 9 out of 10 from over 300 million people worldwide. Those with lower IQs can't even tell who the protagonist is. Just now, Soichiro, who loves to fight, became a freshman at Todo Academy. He wants to dominate the school and plans to start by challenging the third years. He barges into classrooms and starts fights. Clearly, all the students present are no match. Soichiro and Bob defeat them all. Then Soichiro declares fiercely that he will take down everyone, from first years to third years. Loli Maya is the president of the Juken club. She patrols the school daily with Masataka. Today, they are welcoming a new member, her sister Aya. The moment Masataka sees her, time seems to freeze. And he is overwhelmed by his feelings. Maya notices his thoughts and suggests celebrating Aya's first day in the club. Aya, having just finished sword training, decides to take a bath first. Masataka's imagination starts to wander, prompting Maya to hit him in the groin with her sword. Just then, a classmate runs up for help, saying their class is almost defeated. At the scene, Maya finds only 2 enemies, with all her classmates down. She jumps off Masataka's shoulder, and Soichiro hardly takes her seriously, mistaking her for a grade schooler. Maya asserts she is 17 years old and suddenly changes her appearance, stunning all the men present. Soichiro is shocked by the transformation from a schoolgirl to a voluptuous woman, but it's her skills that are more impressive than her physique. She knocks Soichiro out of the window with one move. Realizing the situation is dire since the area below is where the baths are, Maya rushes out, leaving Bob for Masataka to handle. Bob, feeling underestimated, is about to strike when Masataka trips him. Bob realizes the significant gap in their abilities and acknowledges that dominating here won't be easy. By the time Maya arrived at the bathhouse, it was too late. Aya had fallen in love with Soichiro at first sight and kissed him immediately, even proposing they marry right there. But Soichiro, terrified as if he had seen a monster, irresponsibly turned and ran. He didn't notice the seriousness in Aya's eyes. She had truly fallen in love. She made lunchboxes filled with love for Soichiro every day, only to frighten him so much that he ran out of the classroom and hid on the rooftop. It turns out that Soichiro has gynophobia and struggles to breathe around girls. Feeling unsettled, he soon discovered that Aya had followed him. Any man would want such a virtuous wife, but Soichiro was scared away again. This time he hid in the infirmary, but Aya turned into a sexy nurse, causing Soichiro to panic and crash through a window. Aya's mind was elsewhere even during martial arts training, and with one move, her sister Maya threw her off. Maya saw her sister's preoccupation and, as a woman of the Natsume family, knew the rule: to devote herself to any man who sees her body. However, this century-old tradition was not necessarily to be strictly followed. Yet Aya insisted that her mother and grandmother had adhered to this practice, and her motives were not solely about following rules. The moment she saw Soichiro, she felt a strange sensation in her chest, as if electricity were coursing through her body. Aya immediately knew Soichiro was her soulmate, so she pursued him every day. Elsewhere, Bob approached Masataka wanting to know how many people in the school were stronger than him. As he spoke, he crushed 2 copper coins, threatening that Masataka would meet the same fate if he didn't tell the truth. Masataka warned that the school had many strong individuals, and it was best not to stir up trouble. However, Soichiro, who loves to fight, was keen to challenge strong opponents even without information about them. He wanted to spar with Masataka. Soichiro threw a punch, but Masataka blocked it with just a chopstick. He then quickly used a Kamehameha technique to knock down Soichiro. Instead of being defeated, Soichiro became even more excited. He loved fighting and was thrilled to witness such a move. He took off his jacket, ready for a serious fight. Maya stated that Masataka was several times stronger than Soichiro. Street fighters and true experts are different. If Soichiro could land even one punch on Masataka, he would consider it a win. Underestimated, Soichiro charged, but Masataka's series of kicks forced him to retreat repeatedly. Still, Soichiro stood firm on willpower alone. Masataka admitted that he had never met such a stubborn opponent before. Soichiro mocked him for his lack of strength. Hearing this, Masataka leaped towards Soichiro with a kick. Soichiro ducked and tried a sneak attack, but Masataka maintained his balance in the air and kicked Soichiro in the face. Everyone present gasped. Could it be that Aya's crush was not as formidable as expected? Aya's roar woke him up. How could the man she admired be defeated by a martial artist of this level? Soichiro told her to watch. He had never lost a fight before. However, Aya's words had already enraged Masataka, who for the first time felt the desire to beat someone until they couldn't get up. But Soichiro wasn't a trained fighter. He was just a brawler who would do anything to win. He revealed the lunchbox Aya made with love. Knowing Masataka, who liked Aya, couldn't bring himself to destroy it, Soichiro then seized the moment to launch a sneak attack, but this only caused Masataka to lose control completely. Soichiro challenged Masataka, thinking he had a fighting chance, but was beaten so badly he almost wet himself. He lost thoroughly, yet he wasn't upset. He had only ever fought weaklings and was thrilled to finally face a real master. There might be even stronger contenders in the school, which excited him. However, his bravado was just a facade. Inside, he was deeply shaken, having been terrified during the fight. If Masataka hadn't held back, Soichiro could have died. Unbeknownst to Soichiro, he was now in deep trouble. The senior executive council had started to move, intent on punishing the violence since the start of the school year. The enforcers were Tsutomu, who liked to play with fire, and Koji from the boxing club. It was unclear why such skilled fighters were needed against two freshmen, but they were following the president's orders. Tsutomu, cunning and deceitful, set fire to Bob's motorcycle at night. Soichiro realized they were being retaliated against. Meanwhile, Bob's girlfriend Chiaki had been missing for a while. It turned out Tsutomu had ambushed Chiaki and subjected her to brutal torture. He then called the Natsume sisters, declaring that the president had ordered unlimited sanctions against Soichiro and Bob. Upon hearing the news, Aya's pupils dilated as if she had seen something shocking, and despite her sister's attempts to stop her, she rode out on her motorcycle. The Natsume family's bloodline possesses special powers. Aya had just awakened her ability, the Dragon's Eye, which allows her to see through everything and even glimpse the distant past and future. Her awakening might be connected to Soichiro. When Aya arrived, Soichiro and Bob were unconscious, but Tsutomu had not left. In anger, Aya drew her sword and struck at him, but he destroyed her weapon with his bare hands. Out of respect for Maya, Tsutomu did not retaliate against Aya. After this defeat, the trio decided they needed to become stronger. Soichiro realized that even with a surprise attack on the executive council, they could not manage to take their opponents down with them. Thus, they approached the Juken club, asking to learn real martial arts. Maya, welcoming all comers, accepted both into her group. However, this action offended the executive council. Tsutomu confronted Maya, intending to leave him for Soichiro to deal with. But with the enemy at her doorstep, she would not stand by and picked up a tree branch. The Juken club started intensive training for newcomers. Soichiro repeatedly struck an iron pot with his fists, causing them to bleed, but did not achieve the desired effect because his technique was incorrect. Maya explained that he should direct the impact to the center of the iron pot to keep it from moving. To become a true master, one needs to focus power precisely, not release it randomly. Bob also ran 20 kilometers within 1 hour. Black people naturally have soft and elastic muscles, so running continuously helps saturate the muscles with oxygen. Maya taught both from scratch. Unbeknownst to them, the executive council had learned that she had eliminated Tsutomu and recruited 2 freshmen, defying their will, which warranted punishment. Initially, Koji's task was to take down Soichiro and Bob, but now the entire Juken club was added to the list. Meanwhile, Masataka sought Emi to arrange a meeting with his brother, a minister in the executive council. but Mitsuomi refused to see him due to his affiliation with the Juken Club, a place that had traumatized him. Soichiro continued his training, unable to find consistency, either disrupting all the iron pots or piercing through to the back ones alone, to Masataka's astonishment. This was far beyond the difficulty of typical Urat training, yet Soichiro was unaware of his impressive achievement. Maya remarked that in just 3 months, he surpassed everyone in their group. Aya, suffering from insomnia, pondered how to make Soichiro fall in love with her. The next morning, she went to the back mountain, where she found her sister bathing in the water with Soichiro sleeping nearby, which made her anxious. Maya told her not to overthink, but to keep a close eye on Soichiro, as she might actually fall for him one day. This planted a seed of doubt in Aya's mind about what might have happened the previous night. On the other side, the executive council had abandoned Tsutomu for his defeat. Koji received permission to punish him, which also served as revenge for the boxing club members. In this academy, the enforcers are the law, and their failure is a defeat of the law itself. Tsutomu's mistakes were deemed unforgivable. However, Tsutomu resisted Koji's authority, surrounding himself with flames ready to annihilate Koji. Koji believed that Tsutomu had forgotten the essence of fighting, always focusing on flashy techniques, which led to his defeat by Maya. Tsutomu, refusing to listen to Koji's lecture, launched a fiery punch at Koji's chin, but it had no effect. Koji grabbed his wrist, explaining that fighting is simple. Humans have 206 bones full of vulnerabilities. Disable them all, and the fight is over. Meanwhile, Soichiro woke up to find himself lying on Aya's lap. He didn't disturb her but resumed his training, making too much noise and waking her up. Aya was shocked to see a dragon circling around Soichiro, feeling he had changed. It turned out that Maya had given him intensive personal training overnight. Not only had Soichiro grown stronger, but he also felt an emotional attachment to Maya, sensing a similar scent on her. Aya, using her dragon's eye, had a vague awareness of these facts, leaving her feeling very down. While resting in a bowling alley, she found it hard to concentrate. On the executive council's side, since they couldn't trust Koji to act alone, they sent Tagami to assist him. Both were somewhat displeased, feeling that it went against the warrior spirit to have so many strong fighters against one freshman. Unwilling to cooperate, they wanted to compete, with the winner taking on the task of dealing with the Juken Club. However, Emi intervened, pointing out that the mission had uncertainties and needed to be thoroughly addressed. If they ignored the 2 freshmen, they could pose a threat in the near future. Tagami understood Emi's concerns, acknowledging that the Juken Club already had members who were a threat. He had once passed by Aya and sensed a dangerous aura from her, as if she could see right through him, hinting at the legendary dragon's eye. Tagami was right in his guess. Emi then declared that they would completely eliminate the Juken Club that night, with the minister also mobilized. They headed straight to the bowling alley. The woman finally awakened, her eyes able to see both past and future. But the first time she used this ability, she saw the scene she least wanted to witness: her beloved man embracing her sister. Maya, unaware that Aya had seen everything, attempted to approach her with concern but received a slap instead. However, the situation quickly escalated when Emi from the executive council arrived and immediately subdued Maya, breaking her arm in the process. Maya realized that Emi's presence meant the enemy was serious this time. Emi offered her a choice: disband the Juken Club and join them to save her arm. Maya laughed in response, then transformed into a petite girl to slip away and retaliated with a swift kick, returning the favor. Emi, skilled as well, used a spin to create some distance. Maya grew concerned about Soichiro's situation, just as her long hair was cut off. It turned out Emi had dozens of hidden weapons in her body, indicating a prolonged conflict was inevitable. Maya then shifted into her mature form. Elsewhere, Aya hid by the staircase, feeling sad in secret. A thug dared to disturb her and, although she defeated him instantly, Tagami's long staff was a challenge to deal with. In the confined space, his staff techniques forced Aya to constantly dodge. Unable to concentrate, Tagami didn't feel the same pressure he had previously when facing Aya. Suddenly, he thought he could defeat the girl before him. However, once cornered, Aya seemed to transform, mastering the ultimate level of staff technique with multi-angle attacks tailored for close quarters. When space was limited, Only direct stabs were viable. If she could dodge the first strike, she could counterattack. Meanwhile, Soichiro was surrounded by 80 people. These were clearly minor characters, and it wasn't necessary for 3 people to deal with them. Masataka decided to fight his way out alone, allowing Soichiro to conserve energy for the real challenges ahead. Masataka then created blue energy waves with his hands and blasted a huge hole in the ground, through which Soichiro escaped. Masataka and Bob stayed behind. Although they were far stronger than their opponents, they also had to protect Chiaki, who couldn't fight. Fortunately, Bob was there to safeguard her. The thugs were weak, but numerous and seemingly endless. Luckily, they were not very smart. Instead of continuing their attack, they started chatting with Bob, giving Masataka time to gather his chi. On the surface, she looks like a beauty weighing less than 90 kilograms, but in reality, she's a 380-kilogram woman. She can compress all her fat inward and hides hundreds of hidden weapons within her flesh. Anyone who discovers her true form is instantly turned into a hedgehog with spikes. Just now, Maya was cornered by her in the women's restroom. She wanted to eliminate Maya, who was even more beautiful than herself. Facing Emi's hidden weapons, Maya could only dodge continuously. Luckily, the restroom doors were solidly made. However, Emi shattered the mirror behind her and threw the glass shards into the air to pinpoint Maya's location, then lunged with a dagger. But Maya had maximized her dodging ability. Just as Emi prepared for a killing blow, Maya kicked through the door, and Emi jumped to avoid it. Using the door as cover, Maya quickly moved behind her and struck her down in one hit. Emi paid the price for underestimating her opponent. Maya remained worried about the safety of others, especially Aya. Just then, Emi rose again, and as Maya had predicted, Aya was indeed in a crisis. Although she had lured the enemy into the narrow staircase, Tagami's weapon was a specially made 3-section staff, trapping Aya in a dire situation. Elsewhere, Soichiro was intercepted by Koji while on his way. Koji, having endured 3 years in the Executive Council, had finally become an enforcer today. Yet, he was disappointed to confront such a minor character. Soichiro kicked Koji, causing him to spit blood, then struck his head with a knee. In the next moment, Soichiro seemed to hear someone calling his name, his childhood memories flooding into Aya's eyes. These memories cleared Aya's confusion. Tagami sensed something was off and prepared to end the fight. But Aya's eyes were filled with resolve. It appeared that Soichiro and Aya resonated together. Koji saw Dragon Chi in Soichiro and was shocked, but quickly composed himself. Realizing Koji would not let him pass easily, Soichiro decided to fully engage him. Meanwhile, Maya and Emi's battle was nearing its end. In close combat, Maya was overwhelmingly dominant. Emi realized that strategy alone could not defeat Maya. Tactics were futile against absolute power. Still, she refused to lose here, so she drew 4 hidden weapons for a final, desperate fight. Maya had anticipated her tricks, blocking them. But then came a knife. In a crisis, Maya astonishingly caught the 5th flying knife with her mouth and began her counterattack. Maya was stabbed in the thigh, suffering a significant setback for the first time. Although she defeated Emi, the entire building was now sealed off by the Executive Council, leaving the Juken Club with no escape. Maya was fully aware of the enemy's next move, but she had seized Emi's most critical leverage. To keep this secret, Emi would have to obey her command once. At this time, Mitsuomi, a minister of the Executive Council, arrived at the building's entrance. He announced that Emi was in charge of the operation and he could wait for 10 minutes. If Emi did not come down by then, he would attack. Meanwhile, Emi was blocked by her subordinates in the restroom, but Maya stealthily knocked him out from behind. However, the situation was still very unfavorable for the Juken Club. With the head of the Executive Council present, their chances of winning were slim, but Maya didn't see it that way. She was not easily defeated and held an ace up her sleeve, Soichiro. Soichiro, however, first had to get past Koji. This was also a moment to test his training results. Under Maya's guidance, he had learned Ryukei Qigong Tashinko, a technique involving concentrated rotational force refined into a needle-like circular motion, transforming into a line movement filled with ferocious energy. That was the secret of this move. With a gentle swing of his fist, Soichiro shattered the walls and floor. Koji had never seen such a technique before, but it was also Soichiro's first time using it in actual combat, so he missed his target. At that moment, Maya suddenly appeared from behind and stopped Soichiro from using his ultimate move. Martial arts are meant to defeat an enemy, but one must control their own skills. If controlled by the technique, it's better not to learn it at all. Fortunately, Maya intervened. Otherwise, if Soichiro continued using Ryukei Qigong Tashinko, Koji would have crippled his hand. Because of Maya's intervention, Koji now faced a formidable opponent. However, Maya was already out of fighting strength. After leaving the restroom, she had fought her way out, leaving her with little energy. Seeing this, Soichiro became anxious. Koji then used his unusual steps to move behind Soichiro and lock his waist, then slammed his head into the ground using a grappling move. Despite his bulky appearance, Koji moved with surprising speed. As Soichiro crawled forward and touched a rope, Koji, respecting the rules of wrestling, immediately released him. But Soichiro retaliated with 2 kicks followed by a right straight punch. Koji tried to block the punch but fell into Soichiro's trap. Soichiro quickly withdrew the punch, seizing the chance to execute Ryukei Qigong Tashinko. Koji tensed all his muscles in response, rendering Soichiro's punch ineffective and instead shattering his own bones. Koji's muscles were not just protective armor, but weapons designed to defeat an enemy. Attacking him meant one's own force would be turned against them. The stronger the force, the greater the damage to the attacker. Now in trouble, Soichiro was not a match for Koji. Maya tried to stand up to help, but Koji told her to give up. In addition to her external injuries, her shoulder fracture made it impossible for her to fight as she wished, and she would not even be able to participate in the preliminaries a month later. Soichiro refused to give up, but was quickly overpowered by Koji, who aimed to disable his arm. However, in the next second, Soichiro ingeniously used the force to shift his position upward, and while lying down, executed Ryukei Qigong Tashinko. He lifted Koji off the ground. Soichiro had changed his method of releasing energy. Instead of projecting force outward, he converted it directly from within his body. At that moment, Soichiro could easily lift an elephant, so Koji, hit with full force, began to twist at the impact site, but still wanted to continue fighting. A loss meant his comrades would be left vulnerable. However, Soichiro no longer wished to fight. Their battle was being manipulated, making it meaningless for both sides. He respected Koji and was willing to fight another day if necessary. Realizing this, Koji collapsed, and the fight ended. Soichiro immediately picked up Maya and rejoined their companion. Elsewhere, Masataka single-handedly took down all the thugs. Bob protected Chiaki behind a cabinet, but Chiaki was furious. Even though she couldn't fight, she hated watching Bob get hurt. Bob was exhausted, but as they prepared to leave, the 10 minutes were up. Minister Mitsuomi was ready to move. As the elevator doors opened, the trio about to leave encountered the man standing at the top of the academy. This woman finally awakened the ultimate power, Dragon's Eye. It not only sees through everything in the world, but also traverses past and future. However, Dragon's Eye has a drawback. It controls its bearer, revealing the darkest aspects of their humanity. The once kind and innocent Aya now appeared bewitching. Aya was cornered on the rooftop by Tagami. Surprisingly, Tagami, being a gentleman, handed her a scarf to cover herself, claiming it would otherwise distract him. Although Tagami dominated the fight, he felt as if he had already lost. He swung his stick at Aya, but she remained calm and even flashed a sinister smile. In an instant, she teleported in front of Tagami. At such close range, he couldn't even touch her clothes. Was this the power of Dragon's Eye? Then Aya grabbed his stick from the side and slammed Tagami into the ground with a punch. Aya had lost control. Dragon's Eye was now in command, driving her instincts. Maya seemed aware of her sister's awakening. Dragon's Eye could strip an opponent bare, turning everything into data, predicting the future, and recreating past scenes. They even saw the two kissing, which meant Soichiro had to go up alone. Although Tagami was among the top 10 fighters at the academy, Aya's greater enemy was the power of Dragon's Eye itself, which might consume her. When a person becomes powerful, their morals and values can shatter like paper, leaving only their essence. Therefore, the current Aya needed someone to support her, and Soichiro was the best candidate for this. After reaching the rooftop, Tagami had already been defeated, but Aya was lost in confusion. She found pleasure in harming others. Was her true nature this hideous? During the fight, Tagami had surrendered. She knew she should stop, but couldn't. Aya was unsure what to do next when suddenly Soichiro kicked Tagami. Unexpectedly, Soichiro turned out to be a warm-hearted guy, though his way of encouragement was questionable. Neither could have guessed that the situation for Maya looked grim. The strongest man in the academy, Tawara, had arrived. Fortunately, Tawara was a pacifist, and the battle below had ended. Everyone was retreating. There was no reason to fight anymore. Aya found herself again, and for the first time, Soichiro patted her head. Excited, she kissed him. On the other side, as Masataka and his two friends were preparing to leave, they encountered a minister of the executive council. Mitsuomi, his brother, felt disgrace at having such a sibling who needed help to handle merely 80 people. He sent him flying with a punch, and then tasked Kagurazaka with teaching Masataka a lesson. Bob, terrified, could only watch as Masataka was beaten. He finally gathered the courage to kick, but it left no mark. Then Bob threw a series of punches excitedly, but they had no effect on Mitsuomi. In the next moment, Mitsuomi unexpectedly bowed deeply to Bob, indicating he had passed the test. He had been testing Bob's potential and wanted to recruit him, arguing that staying under Maya would only lead to his deterioration. At the executive council, he could become the strongest blade in the academy. Bob refused him, but Mitsuomi continued, explaining that since the Sengoku period, the Takayanagi family had mastered all martial arts and combined them. Ignoring such an invitation would not suit a true martial artist. However, he was free to remain content with his current state. If so, he would never surpass Soichiro. Mitsuomi's words made Bob hesitate. Just then, Chiaki helped him see clearly. True strength comes from within. Even if he is bullied now, he can return it 100-fold later. Bob realized this fully, tearing his shirt. Even though he couldn't beat Mitsuomi now, with his beloved woman standing behind him, he wouldn't feel alone even in defeat. Masataka was also inspired by Bob. He knew the people of the executive council were afraid. No matter how many were cut down, the rebels would regrow like stubborn weeds. Determined not to be outdone, Masataka decided to get serious. However, a second later, he was severely injured and lying on the ground. Mitsuomi had taken him down instantly, attacking his own people mercilessly. Bob was protected under Chiaki. They were all defeated. Just then, Soichiro arrived. Seeing his two grievous companions on the ground, everyone gasped. Soichiro was furious. This man was seeing red, knocking down the strongest in the academy, Mitsuomi, with a single punch. Before he could react, he was hit again, spewing blood. Maya, watching, was shocked. Mitsuomi, known for his genius defensive abilities, had taken a direct and solid hit. Mitsuomi decided to kill Soichiro on the spot. Historically, only gods, dragons, or demons could possess infinite chi. If a human were to achieve this, it would be an unforgivable sin against heaven. So, faced with this novice in martial arts, Mitsuomi got serious. Just 10 minutes earlier, he had looked down on Soichiro, planning to end the fight in 3 minutes. Underestimated like this, Soichiro couldn't stand it and punched Mitsuomi in the face. At this moment, his attack was as ineffective as tickling. Mitsuomi steadied his head, tripped Soichiro with a foot, and then kicked him in the face. This was a new technique Soichiro had just learned, yet Mitsuomi's use of it was 10,000 times more powerful. Mitsuomi explained that this martial art was originally a secret of the Takayanagi family. The Ryukei Qigong Tashinko that Soichiro used was merely the surface, stolen by Shin, the brother of Maya and Aya. As her beloved fell, Aya's dragon's eye awakened again, only to be knocked out by Mitsuomi. He then questioned Maya about when she would give up, stating that a country only needs one king, just as martial arts do. The Natsumi family, having branched off from the ancient Takayanagi family, should bow down again instead of trying to defeat them. As he spoke, he opened Maya's coat, noting that despite her severe injuries, she had grown stronger. It was known that Maya and Mitsuomi were once lovers. However, time does not reverse. He had hurt many people and was the killer of her brother. Maya would never forgive him. Meanwhile, Emi knelt on the ground in fear, her unilateral decisions against the Executive Council's advice having led to the failure of this mission. But Tawara was not concerned with the outcome. It was rare for Mitsuomi to be involved. Although Soichiro and Aya were quite capable, they were nothing more than a challenge outside of Mitsuomi's usual battles, lasting at most 2 minutes. It was unfortunate for Maya, who had been striving for 2 years, only to see her efforts possibly dissolve in 2 minutes. However, Tawara couldn't understand why a battle that should end in 2 minutes was still ongoing. That was because Soichiro had stood up again, confusing Mitsuomi. He had already struck Soichiro's pressure points. How could he still be moving? He immediately saw a dragon on Soichiro's body. Chi is normally generated from the body and acts internally, so its amount is limited. Even Mitsuomi would deplete his chi with continuous use. However, there are exceptions. Some can withstand his attacks and instantly recover, possessing an infinite and overwhelming chi that even distorts the atmosphere. Such individuals have historically been called demons, using their great power to commit sins unforgivable by the heavens. Maya's brother was also such a person. Mitsuomi was ready to strike him down. Even though Soichiro possessed the bloodline of a demon-slaying clan, he would still die since he had not yet matured. Just as Mitsuomi was about to act, Tawara doused him with cold water, proving himself to be the real power. By then, Soichiro had already lost consciousness, merely reacting to the killing intent. Mitsuomi regained his composure, and the battle truly ended. However, it was not as easy as it seemed. The uncontrollable Soichiro had already inflicted a fatal wound on him. If not for Tawara's intervention, Mitsuomi might have been defeated. Now, he hid in the restroom, unable to move, yet he was also quite pleased. Soichiro had lost control in anger after seeing Masataka defeated. Masataka had made a powerful ally in his own way. It seems Mitsuomi's cold demeanor was just a facade. In reality, he was deeply protective of his brother. Seeing her companions suffer innocently, Maya decided to tell them the truth. 3 years ago, the Executive Council's minister was her brother, while Mitsuomi was just a subordinate of Shin. Because Mitsuomi was the heir to the main family, Maya challenged him. Unexpectedly, Mitsuomi defeated her with a single move. Even more unexpectedly, this fight made Mitsuomi fall in love with her at first sight. He looked for excuses to approach her daily, but Maya was only focused on defeating him. Under Shin's leadership, the Executive Council was thriving, inevitably attracting attention from other powers. One day, someone came to challenge them. With her skills, Maya couldn't defeat the opponent, but having someone help would hurt her pride more, a pain worse than death for a martial artist. Thus, Shin, suppressing his anger, watched his sister get beaten. However, after the fight, protective brother Shin couldn't let the opponent walk away. He thrust his thumb into the man's abdomen to avenge her. Seizing the moment, Maya strangled the man with her legs, a move many men hoped to be defeated by. Mitsuomi was still naive. Seeing the man about to die, he hoped someone would call an ambulance. Just then, a needle pierced the man's crown. It was Shin's girlfriend, Mana, who intervened. Her acupuncture skills were excellent, capable of reviving someone as long as they had a breath left. Afterward, Mana warned Mitsuomi that in this academy, if he panicked at that level, he wouldn't last. But with Mitsuomi's keen eyesight, he realized that Shin truly intended to kill the opponent, as Iron Fingers is a lethal technique capable of crushing the liver. Mana didn't explain much, but instead lured Mitsuomi to the old schoolhouse under the cover of night. There, she knocked Mitsuomi to the ground and revealed secrets she had discovered during her years with Shin. She explained that whenever Maya was involved, Shin couldn't control himself. Their relationship seemed less like siblings and more like lovers. Moreover, Maya's opponents in battles were always shadows of Shin. This revelation made Mitsuomi fully understand the situation, and he accepted Mana's invitation to become a real man. Following this, Mitsuomi immersed himself in martial arts training daily, leading Maya to suspect he might have a woman. Tawara warned Mitsuomi to stay away from Mana, who was openly spreading rumors about their relationship, leaving Mitsuomi puzzled as to why she was doing so. On the other hand, Shin seemed to have discovered something and took up the cursed sword Reiki, which he had never touched before. It turned out that his dragon's eye had awakened and he was on a killing spree, simply venting his emotions. He had become a puppet of the dragon's eye. But he never expected to be betrayed by Mana. Mana gave Mitsuomi a hard drive filled with videos of her and Shin, including footage of his uncontrollable rampages. Tawara and Mitsuomi then discovered the true nature of Shin. But who could have recorded such footage? It turns out that the Takayanagi family had always treated Shin as a lab rat, monitoring his growth to collect data on the dragon's eye. Mana's family had served the Takayanagi family for generations, and she was assigned to the task of being Shin's girlfriend, though she genuinely fell in love with him. When Shin was young, his parents planned to send him away to a remote place, fearing the awakening of the dragon's eye would bring disaster. However, Shin, unwilling to be separated from Maya, lost control and killed his parents using Reiki. This nightmare awakened Maya, who had almost forgotten about it. Reiki is a cursed blade that combines with the power of its wielder and is also controlled by their nature. But without the dragon's eye, one cannot wield Reiki. As a member of the Natsume family without the dragon's eye, one is considered a disgrace. Thus, Maya is desperate to become stronger, but Shin does not wish this for her. He sees Maya as his only reason to live, hoping she would always stay by his side and protect her growth. Who will save this poor girl? She caught the eye of a sleazy man and is now running at 240 kilometers per hour. However, the man is chasing her on a motorcycle and is about to catch her when a large truck appears from the side. The woman speeds up and dashes past it, while the man drives under the truck and corners her. What he doesn't expect is that the woman's body is filled with hidden weapons. Even more cunning, the real weapon turns out to be the vehicle behind him. The man is hit against a wall by the car, but the next second, he stands up and punches the oncoming car. This is Tawara's fist, representing the true power ceiling of Todo Academy. His suffering here is all because of Shin. From childhood, the Takayanagi family has monitored Shin's growth, including his friends, scheming since ancient times to combine all martial arts to create the ultimate warrior. Mitsuomi represents the hope of the entire Takayanagi family and the dream of Japan's martial arts community. Thus, the family has invested all their resources in him, spending 10 billion yen to hire Fujian from China as Mitsuomi's martial arts coach and constructing the most advanced 3D surround training pod for him. However, no matter how much he trains, Mitsuomi is haunted by a huge shadow over his heart, the true nature of Shin, something beyond human capabilities. Mitsuomi dreads the day he must confront Shin, but his father, Dogen, wishes to meet Shin. The time has come to witness the power of the dragon's eye. Tawara is also searching for Shin, but Emi clearly refuses to lead the way. Therefore, Tawara resorts to brute force, easily subduing Emi and hailing a taxi to head to the destination. However, the next second, the driver is shocked because numerous cars are following and trying to stop him. Under Tawara's threat, the driver dares not stop. Soon, everyone arrives at Shin's location. Although severely injured, Tawara gets out of the car for his dear friend. But upon learning the whole truth, Tawara is deeply shocked. All students at Todo Academy are merely experimental rats, doomed to fight each other eventually. Shin, aware of these secrets and under the control of the dragon's eye, once again reveals his monstrous side, deciding to draw his blade against his close friend. Tawara takes a fighting stance. Dogen asks Tawara about his fighting style. Mana says he has no style. He is just a tough fighter, unbeaten in the academy and the strongest outsider in Todo Academy. Tawara strikes first, only to see the illusion of himself being split. This is Shin's murderous intent. If Shin gets serious, Tawara would die within 2 seconds. Even without weapons, Tawara is no match for Shin, especially with the dragon's eye and Reiki. Tawara calms himself, accustomed to such situations, and prepared to fight to the death. But the next second, his thigh is pierced, followed by Shin torturing him mercilessly. And behind all this, Dogen just sighs with emotion. This is the so-called martial arts and humanity, a reality that succumbs to powerful magic, becoming such a brutal and despicable existence. At this moment, Shin, with overwhelming strength, plays with the strongest man in the academy at will. Yet, for some reason, Mana finds his figure deeply tragic. However, everyone underestimated Tawara. They thought he had lost consciousness and woke the uncontrollable Shin. But the moment he released Reiki, Tawara suddenly opened his eyes, used the car to propel himself forward, and knocked Shin down with a punch. Everyone felt a chill down their spine. Tawara was too strong. Shin had no chance to fight back. In desperation, Shin rushed towards Mana, attempting to pick up Reiki and activate the Dragon's Eye, but Tawara stopped him with a long-range attack. He felt it was a pity for Shin to bow before these people and betray his companions, unable to fight without that sword, and even unable to defeat him, who was injured. Shin's current state is all Dogen's conspiracy. From a young age, he brainwashed Shin, labeling him as a dark presence, with his only light being his sister, Maya. As a child, when the Dragon's Eye awakened, he was locked in a dungeon by his parents, visited only by the young Maya who comforted him. Therefore, he was willing to be the moth to the flame, ready to die unhesitatingly, because that flame was Maya, his only reason to live. At this point, Maya realized her brother's feelings for her were special. Through the fight between Tawara and Shin, Dogen decided to reassess Shin. He instructed his secretary to compile all the data on Shin so far. Fuchien grew more curious about Shin, thinking if Shin's strong will could be utilized well, it might help them achieve their goal of turning Mitsuomi into a true warrior ahead of schedule. However, Mitsuomi has been distracted lately, unable to focus on training. The psychological shadow Shin cast on him has not faded, and being just a freshman, he faced challenges from upperclassmen. As the designated successor to the executive council, a defeat would be embarrassing. Maya believed Mitsuomi would surely win, but he was trembling with fear. So Maya stepped in and defeated the challenger for him. Mitsuomi accused her of meddling, but he was in no position to win at that moment. He was a rival recognized by Maya and couldn't afford to lose to mere underlings. Indeed, the primary motivation for a man is still a woman. Maya's words helped Mitsuomi regain his self-confidence. For 8 years, he had been following Shin's lead, but today he decided to surpass him.